Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we take the sources you share, dive right in, and really pull out the core insights, trying to get past the surface level for your understanding. Today, we've got something, well, pretty specific. It's a document that definitely caught our eye, taking us into a unique corner of, let's say, late 20th century esoteric publishing.
Yeah, this one's interesting.
We're looking at these excerpts titled IGOS Hidden Keys of the Necronomicon.
That's right. And when you first showed me these pages, what immediately jumped out was how they treat the Necronomicon itself. You know, most people encounter it through fiction, Lovecraft, and all that.
Right, exactly.
But here, it's presented as practical material, something you actually work with. And it's framed within this formal, structured occult system from an organization called the International Guild of Occult Sciences, or IGOS.
And that's really our goal for this deep dive. We want to unpack that specific framework. What is this document actually trying to communicate? We'll dig into its structure. The main idea is it introduces things like keys, dragons, the central mandal concept, and importantly, the actual symbolic stuff it presents.
Yeah, the visuals.
What are these hidden keys, according to this document? How are they shown visually, and how do they tie into this particular take on the Necronomicon? It's really a deep look into how these complex esoteric ideas get organized and presented within one very specific system.
It really is. It's a fascinating kind of case study, isn't it? How something potentially fictional gets adopted and then given this like concrete form, structure, and even a practical application within a real-world occult group.
Yeah.
It's almost like seeing a blueprint for how one particular group decided to map out the unseen.
Okay, so let's start by just setting the scene, understanding the source document itself. What exactly are we dealing with here?
Well, based on the pages you provided, it's clearly excerpts from something published by this International Guild of Occult Sciences, IGOS for short.
Right.
The main title is IGOS Hidden Keys of the Necronomicon. But interestingly, there are other prominent titles displayed too, like The Silent Dragon seems to be on a cover or title page. And the title, The Hidden Key of the Necronomicon, is also used elsewhere in the material.
Okay, so multiple titles right off the bat. That feels significant, doesn't it? Like maybe hinting at different facets or layers of meaning or different parts of the knowledge inside. They sound pretty evocative, kind of symbolic in themselves.
Precisely. And the document itself gives us some specifics. There's a copyright notice, clearly dated September 1990, and it's attributed to IGOS Associates.
1990, okay.
It also explicitly states that IGOS is a nonprofit organization.
Got it. So we're definitely looking at material from a formal organization, something established, not just some, personal notes someone scribbled down. It was presenting itself as legitimate back in 1990.
Yes. And they're pretty clear about how they intended it to be used. The text says the information is for research purposes.
Research.
And it was available through bookshops, but also, importantly, through IGOS membership, which suggests, layers of access, maybe? And there's the standard kind of disclaimer you often see with this sort of material saying the organization isn't responsible for what people do with the information.
Right, the usual CYA.
But what's interesting is it also grants permission to use the material, provided you give attribution back to IGOS.
Okay, now that's a key detail, isn't it? It tells us they weren't trying to keep this knowledge totally secret or exclusive.
Exactly.
They actually intended for it to be studied, maybe shared, potentially used by others, as long as people acknowledged where it came from.
Right.
It immediately signals that this document is likely part of a bigger picture, like a curriculum or a body of work they were offering.
Absolutely. So we're looking at published material from an organization positioning itself as a formal source, offering structured occult knowledge, and willing to share its specific way of engaging with this Necronomicon material.
All right, let's shift from the document's origins to its core concepts, the framework it lays out. Those titles themselves introduce the main idea. Hidden Keys of the Necronomicon. What does that phrase, hidden keys, really suggest here?
Well, hidden keys immediately implies that the Necronomicon, whether you think of it as a text or a body of knowledge, isn't straightforward. It's not something you can just, read off the page and fully grasp its meaning or its power.
Right, there's more to it.
There's a deeper layer, something concealed.
Yeah.
And these keys are presented as the necessary tools or maybe insights or methods. Basically, what you need to unlock or get access to that hidden part. It strongly suggests secret knowledge, or maybe symbolic interpretation is required, or perhaps even a specific kind of initiation or path.
Like finding the combination to a lockbox where the real value is inside.
Exactly. Or maybe think of it like the Rosetta Stone for a really complex symbolic language. It gives you the cipher, the way to understand the deeper meaning. And like we noted, this source treats the Necronomicon not as, H.P. Lovecraft's fiction,
Yeah.
but as real stuff,
Yeah.
intended for practical magical work or maybe spiritual work within their framework of occult sciences.
Which is fascinating in itself, given where most people know it from. Okay, so the second intriguing title, The Silent Dragon. The source doesn't spell it out, but
Yeah.
what could a silent dragon symbolize in this kind of system? Any thoughts?
Well, dragons are incredibly potent symbols, aren't they? Across so many myths and esoteric traditions.
Definitely. Power, chaos, wisdom.
Right. Guardians of treasure, guardians of knowledge, primordial forces. But the silent aspect adds another dimension. It could suggest this power isn't loud or obvious. Maybe it's internal, subtle, hidden.
Or perceived non-verbally.
Intuitively.
Exactly. So in the context of hidden keys, a silent dragon, maybe it symbolizes the deep fundamental power or principle that underlies this whole Necronomicon system they're presenting.
Like a potent, maybe chaotic, maybe formless energy that the keys are designed to interact with or navigate or perhaps even control.
That makes sense. Like, it's the raw, untamed potential that the structured system, the keys, the gates, tries to understand or maybe channel.
Precisely. It's the mystery, the potential energy that the keys are supposed to unlock or somehow relate to. And then we get to a really central visual and conceptual piece, the mandal or wheel.
Right.
The document specifically labels a big complex diagram as the position of the gates and keys to the Necronomicon mandal or wheel.
Okay, so this shifts things. We're moving from just abstract keys to a structured visual system. The keys actually have a place on a map.
Absolutely. And in many traditions, a mandal or a wheel is a symbolic diagram, often circular, sometimes square, used for meditation, visualization.
Right, like in Tibetan Buddhism or Hinduism.
Exactly. Or for mapping cosmic structures, spiritual hierarchies, even psychological states. And here it's presented as the fundamental framework of the Necronomicon, at least as IGS understood it.
So it's their map.
It's the map that organizes all these different gates and keys, which we'll see are represented by specific symbols into one coherent, interconnected structure. It tells us the keys aren't just, say, a random list of symbols or passwords. They're components within a larger system, a navigable structure that you can explore, maybe visually or internally.
So the mandal is the landscape, maybe, and the gates and keys are the specific landmarks or access points within that landscape, which leads us right into the practical side, because the document doesn't just show the map.
No, it tells you how to interact with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's that section titled Waking, and it outlines these preparatory steps that seem essential if you want to actually engage with this material.
What does it say?
It starts with clearing the mind, which is, pretty fundamental in most meditative practices, magical work, contemplation.
Standard stuff, but crucial. Quieting the noise.
Right. Creating that internal space needed for deeper perception. And then it gets more specific. It talks about engaging in meditation. This really confirms that accessing these hidden keys isn't just about reading the document and thinking about it intellectually. It requires getting into a specific internal state, right? A state of focused awareness that's different from just ordinary thinking consciousness.
And it emphasizes things like listening to an inner voice.
Yeah.
Feeling the forces within, even examining your dreams.
And that's a critical point. It heavily suggests that getting at these hidden keys depends a lot on, internal perception, intuition, maybe even subconscious input.
Yeah.
It's not just about logically decoding symbols on a page. The knowledge isn't just in the document. It's something you have to sort of attune yourself to perceive through inner sensing, non-rational ways of knowing.
Which makes sense, right? If the knowledge is truly hidden, then just looking at it from the outside intellectually probably wouldn't be enough.
Exactly.
You need to develop a sensitivity to perceive what's not immediately obvious on the surface.
Precisely. It's basically an invitation to develop those internal faculties. And then the source explicitly connects this waking practice to meditating on the mandal or wheel.
Ah, okay, the connection.
And also on something called the complete key. That link is vital, it tells us. Meditation gets you into the right state of mind. The mandal serves as the visual map or the conceptual focus point.
Right.
And the complete key, maybe that's a specific master symbol or perhaps a state of understanding you reach, is the ultimate goal or result of this practice. And you get there via the Mandel map while you're in that woken state.
Okay, that clarifies the process. And the introduction page,
Yeah.
even though parts of it are hard to read in the source, it seems to back this up.
It does seem to. Yeah, parts are faint, but you can make out phrases suggesting immediate interpretation like, don't just skim, try to grasp the deeper meaning right away.
Okay.
It mentions listening, which reinforces that idea of paying attention to the inner voice or subtle cues, and it talks about needing to reach a deep concentration.
And the overall goal seems to be understanding truth, right, through these methods.
Yes, exactly. So the practical instructions really emphasize a direct, experiential, intuitive way of engaging with this IGO version of the Necronomicon system.
Right.
It's about doing active internal work to perceive the deeper truth that all these symbols, structures, and concepts are supposed to represent. It's a system that demands a certain kind of internal readiness and engagement from the practitioner.
Okay, now let's look at the conceptual backdrop for all of this.
Yep.
The document includes a section called The Absolute, and it comes with a diagram labeled the Ancient Wisdom Foundation. This looks like their cosmology, their map of reality itself.
Yeah, this diagram is pretty detailed. It definitely represents a layered structure, a stratified view of existence as understood within this system.
What are the layers?
Okay, so right at the very top, it labels heaven. And just below that, heaven's A.
Interesting. 2 layers of heaven.
Then below that, you have earth and then firmament. The firmament often being, the sky, or sometimes seen as a barrier between the heavens and the earth.
Okay, makes sense.
Going down further, we see layers or maybe locations labeled lake, river, and foundation. And then below those, the sea and foundation of the earth.
So it feels like we're moving from the celestial down through the terrestrial and then into subterranean or maybe primordial depths.
Exactly. It feels that way. And it goes even deeper. Below the foundation of the earth, we see layers labeled Locathian, which is a curious term, then a storehouse, and finally fountains.
Wow. That's quite a complex multi-tiered model. Is it meant to be physical planes, spiritual planes, states of consciousness?
It could be any or all of those, couldn't it? Within this tradition, it might map physical locations, spiritual realms, different dimensions of reality, or even levels of consciousness. It's their specific cosmic geography.
So how does this specific cosmology connect to the Necronomicon system they're presenting? What does it add?
Well, it provides the essential context for the gates and the mandal. They aren't just abstract concepts or symbols floating in a void.
Right.
They're presented as points of access or navigation or interaction within this specific layered reality map. The cosmology diagram gives us the metaphysical landscape that underlies the whole system.
So the gates might be thresholds allowing you to connect or maybe travel between different layers or aspects of this absolute reality shown in the diagram.
That seems highly likely. For example, you could speculate that a celestial gate, like the seal of the moon's gate we'll look at, might relate to those heaven or heaven's A layers, while other gates, maybe those with more chthonic names or symbols, could connect to the earth, sea, or perhaps even those deeper levels like Locathian or the fountains.
Okay, so meditating on a specific gate, using its seal while in that woken state, and maybe using the mandal as your guide, the intention might be to connect the practitioner with the energies or maybe intelligences or states of consciousness that reside in that particular layer of this cosmic model.
That seems like a very strong possibility based on how these systems usually work. Occult frameworks often use diagrams like this, cosmograms, to map reality, both internal and external, onto symbolic structures. It provides a framework for ritual, for meditation, for visionary journeys. So this Ancient Wisdom Foundation diagram essentially provides the metaphysical geography for the practical work they describe using the gates and keys. It roots the whole abstract system in a specific multidimensional view of existence.
Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating. And also visually quite complex, the keys themselves, presented as all these seals and sigils linked to specific gates or sometimes temples. This feels like the core symbolic material, the actual visual language of this system.
Absolutely. This is a huge part of the source material. Pages and pages of these diagrams. Let's maybe start with the ones labeled as directional gates.
Good idea. Where do we begin?
We see the seal of the North Gate. It's presented inside like the top section of a grid structure. Visually, it's very geometric, lots of intersecting lines making rectangles, triangles. And within those geometric shapes, there are a few smaller symbols that look more fluid. And notably, there's a big number 3 in the top left corner. And another symbol that looks a bit like an upright question mark or maybe an anchor.
And right below it on the same page is the bottom seal of the south gate. How does that one look?
Also set within a square grid, but this one's mostly empty space except for symbols placed along the bottom edge. And these symbols are made of more flowing, curvy lines, quite distinct from the geometric foundation of the North Gate seal itself.
Interesting. So right away, a visual difference between north and south.
Yeah.
Does that suggest maybe different kinds of energy?
Yeah.
Or principles? North is often associated with earth, stillness, south with fire, dynamism. Could the geometry versus the fluid lines hint at something like that?
It absolutely could. In esoteric symbolism, the visual style often is the message, intended to reflect the nature of the force or concept the seal represents, so that difference is likely intentional.
Okay, what about east and west?
Then we have the token of the East Gate. This one's in the top half of another page. It's inside a larger square that's divided by diagonal lines forming an X, and there's a smaller square right in the center.
Okay.
And symbols are placed around the edges and also inside that central square. Some look geometric, there's like an arrow pointing left, others are more fluid curves or abstract shapes.
East often associated with air, beginnings, intellect maybe. Do any of those symbols jump out as relating to that? I know it's speculative.
It's hard to say for sure without their own explanations, you know? But having both angular and fluid forms together, maybe it represents different aspects of that elemental association. Communication, perhaps? Movement?
Possibly. And below that East Gate token?
Is the bottom seal of the West Gate. Now, this one's structured differently again. It looks more like a house shape, or maybe a shield. It's got a triangular top section and then a rectangular base, which is divided into smaller boxes or compartments.
And symbols inside.
Yeah, various symbols. There's a small triangle with dots inside it, a wavy line with little spheres attached, and other flowing shapes within its different sections.
West. Often linked to water, endings, emotion, the subconscious. That wavy line with spheres sounds kind of watery, doesn't it?
It could suggest that, yeah. Again, we're interpreting based on general symbolic associations, but the main takeaway is these aren't just random doodles.
Right.
They're presented with deliberate structure, specific symbols within each seal, probably intended to function as very specific keys or access points for that particular gate or direction within their system.
Okay, moving on from directions. Celestial or planetary gates. The source shows the seal of the moon's gate. What's that like?
This seal is inside a rectangular box, divided horizontally into 3 parts.
Okay.
The top part has a symbol that looks like an 8-pointed asterisk or star with lines connecting the points. The middle section has a very clear crescent moon symbol. Can't miss that one.
Definitely lunar.
And the bottom section has 2 interconnected symbols that are quite complex and flowing, almost like script.
The crescent moon is obvious, but what about the star shape? Or the symbols below?
Well, an 8-pointed star. Sometimes it's linked to chaos magic, sometimes Venus, sometimes just stellar energy or divine light. Combined with the moon, this seal almost certainly pertains to lunar energies, maybe cycles, the subconscious, intuition.
Or maybe specific entities associated with the moon in this Necronomicon system.
Exactly. And the complex symbols at the bottom could represent the manifested effects of those lunar forces, or maybe deeper hidden aspects. It's clearly meant as a key to the lunar realm within their specific cosmology.
Makes sense. And below that one is the bottom seal of the Neptune's gate.
Right. This one is presented within a grid structure again, and it has multiple distinct symbols scattered inside the squares of the grid. These symbols are really varied. Some are just abstract lines and dots. Others look more structured.
Anything stand out?
There's a symbol in the top right square that really looks like an eye with a line drawn through it.
An eye with a line. And others look almost like stylized letters or very complex, self-contained sigils.
Okay, Neptune. Usually associated with dreams, intuition, illusion, the deep subconscious, maybe even chaos or dissolution sometimes. That eye symbol feels very suggestive there.
It does. An eye often represents perception, right? Vision, physical, or inner, or even surveillance. But an eye with a line through it, maybe obscured vision, hidden sight, or perhaps seeing through illusion.
Ah, that's interesting.
Given Neptune's associations, a seal with that kind of eye symbol might be intended to help access or understand those realms. Dreams, deep intuition, maybe piercing illusions within the Neptune sphere of influence.
And the other varied symbols in the grid.
They could represent different facets or maybe sub-keys within the overall Neptune gate, different aspects of its power or domain.
Got it. And then there's also the complete seal within the gate of Venus. That sounds important.
Ah, yes, this one looks quite different. It takes up a whole page. It's structured as a large square divided into a 3x3 grid, so 9 sections total.
And each of those 9 squares contains one or more distinct symbols or sigils, often quite complex ones. And they vary a lot in style. Some are really flowing, organic-looking, like tangled threads. Others are more angular or use geometric bits like circles or lines.
And that name, Complete Seal. What might that imply, especially for Venus?
Well, complete, C-O-M-P-L-E-A-T, that old spelling meaning complete or finished. It suggests this isn't just representing one aspect of Venus energy or the Venus gate.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a synthesis of multiple aspects or a more powerful, comprehensive, sort of fully realized representation.
Okay, and Venus is usually linked to?
Love, beauty, harmony, yes, but also desire, temptation, earthly connections, depending on the esoteric context. So a complete seal for Venus. Maybe it represents that whole spectrum of energies associated with the planet within this IGOS system.
Or maybe it's the key that grants full access or mastery over that particular gate.
That's a strong possibility. The complexity and the variety of those 9 component symbols could be meant to represent all those diverse aspects. It feels like a master key for the Venusian realm as they saw it.
So not just a key for Venus, but maybe the key. Okay. Then there are these other gates or even temples with seals.
Yes, the sourceless seals for Aurochs, Shaitan, Nagai, Marduk, Io, and Amon.
Some familiar names in there and some less so.
Exactly. The seals for Aurochs, Shaitan, and Nagai are presented within grid structures, kind of like some of the others we saw, but each one contains a unique and really intricate set of symbols or sigils filling up the grid compartments.
With names like Shaitan.
Yeah.
Obviously, that one stands out from other contexts. What does including names like that alongside others suggest about this system?
It really suggests this system is probably drawing from, or at least referencing, a variety of sources or traditions,
Right.
integrating names and maybe entities that have different associations elsewhere.
Right.
But within the specific IGOS Necronomicon framework, these names and their unique seals are presented as distinct gates or temples, which likely means they correspond to specific energies, entities, or concepts that you're meant to interact with using their system.
So the seal for Shaitan, for example.
It features this central, complex, sort of star-like figure and various other sigils around it within the grid. Now, given Shaitan's common association with adversary figures or chaotic forces, this seal might represent access to or interaction with those kinds of forces, challenges, maybe adversarial principles. But again, it's key to remember this is within the specific context and interpretation of the IGOS system, how they understood and used that concept.
Understood. What about Marduk and IAO? Those are significant names, too.
Yes. The seal for the Temple of Marduk is another large square divided into a grid with a central square area, and it's densely packed with complex sigils all around the outer edge and also inside that central area. Many of the symbols around the border look like they're connected by lines, almost forming a continuous pattern around the center. Now, Marduk, he's a major deity in Mesopotamian mythology, right? Associated with creation, establishing order, famously defeating the primordial chaos monster Tiamat.
Right.
So, including him here as a temple with such a dense, structured seal, it might suggest this gate relates to establishing order, maybe creation, or perhaps engaging with forces that overcome chaos.
Oh, maybe connecting back to that Salon Dragon idea. Marduk as the structuring principle acting on the chaos.
That's a really interesting thought. It could definitely represent something like the structured system itself, imposing form on the formless. And then there's the Temple of IAO.
What's that one like?
Also a large, complex seal filling a page. It's a big square with a smaller square inside it. And both the outer band and the inner square are just filled with numerous unique sigils. Many of these look very fluid, almost organic, but there are some more angular shapes mixed in.
And IAO.
IAO is a well-known mystical name for God, found in various Gnostic texts, magical traditions like the PGM. Its inclusion here suggests a link to, perhaps, higher divine principles or universal consciousness within this Necronomicon system, something maybe distinct from the potentially more chaotic or earthly gates.
And the fluid sigils.
They might represent the flowing energy or manifestation of this divine principle. Interestingly, there's also a symbol that looks like an eye in the top right corner of its outer border, similar to the one we saw on the Neptune seal, maybe suggesting divine sight or awareness.
Recurring symbols are always interesting. Okay, and finally, the seal for Amon.
Right. This one is presented as the complete seal within the temple of Ama. Note the parentheses around the end, suggesting maybe Amum or Amun.
Okay.
It's within a large square, and it contains an inner rectangular area, which is divided into vertical columns. Both the outer area and those inner columns have complex sigils. But what's really unique here is the text written directly on the diagram.
Text, what does it say?
Along the outer edges, it has Imoa Amum and M Yaugi A.
Ah, why include specific words or names right on the seal like that?
That strongly suggests these names or phrases are integral to the seal's function. Maybe they need to be vibrated or spoken to activate it, or they're key to understanding the entity or concept it represents.
Zamoa Ama? Sounds like it links some possibly magical word Amo directly with the name Amo.
Exactly. And Amon or Amon is often listed as a powerful spirit, sometimes a demon king, in grimoires like the Goetia.
Right.
So having him here as a temple and with a complete seal, plus these unique phrases and other symbols shown like a flower and something that looks like a key or a scepter.
A flower and a key.
Yeah, it points to a highly specific, maybe syncretic understanding and method for working with this entity within the IGOS framework. The flower could mean beauty, growth, manifestation. The key or scepter suggests authority, access, power.
And the other phrase, M-A-U-U-R-J-A.
That's less immediately recognizable. It could be a unique mystical phrase, maybe a name specific to this IGOS system. Its inclusion makes this seal particularly dense with information.
Wow. Okay, so each of these seals isn't just a picture. It's like a dense package of potential meaning, maybe instruction, intended to function as a very specific key to a particular gate or principle within their system.
Exactly. And this is the crucial part. They all supposedly tie back to that central diagram, the big one titled The Position of the Gates and Keys to the Necronomicon Mandal or Wheel.
Right, the main map.
Exactly. This Mandal diagram is presented as the overarching structure, the map that brings all these individual keys, gates, and temples together into one system.
Can we break down that structure again, how it looks and what the labels might mean, thinking about it as a functional map?
Sure, it's a large diagram, and its core structure looks like a cross. There's a central square and then rectangular segments extending out horizontally and vertically from it.
Okay, a cross shape built from squares and rectangles.
Right. And around the perimeter of this whole structure, at various key points, there are these specific labels. They look like three-letter combinations. SAP, YTL, SL, WA, DA, PA, BA, and Y. And there's a symbol inside the very central square that looks like a small letter M.
SAP, YTL, SEL, WA, DA, PA, BA, YAM in the center. What could those labels represent? Are they directions, stages, concepts?
Well, in mandalas or wheels used in other traditions, points like these often represent directions, though these aren't standard compass points, obviously. Or they could be elemental associations, maybe stages in a process, or even specific divine emanations or concepts linked to those points. Within this context, since it's explicitly called a map of gates and keys, these points could represent key stages in navigating the system, or fundamental principles of the system, or perhaps they link specific gates, like the ones we just discussed, to specific points or pathways on this wheel.
You mentioned seeing symbols from the individual seals appearing on the Mandal diagram, too?
Yes, exactly. For instance, that 8-pointed asterisk shape we saw in the moon seal. It appears in several places within the grid segments of the main mandal. This really reinforces the idea that the individual seals and their symbols are components that fit into this larger structure.
Okay, so this diagram is literally trying to show the practitioner how all the different gates, their associated symbols, and maybe these abstract points on the wheel are interconnected within the Necronomicon system, at least according to IGS.
Precisely. It's the visual framework for the practice they outline. You can really see how this would be used together with those waking and meditation instructions.
Oh, so.
Well, you'd meditate on this specific Mandal diagram, maybe focusing on that central M symbol, or visually tracing the paths indicated by the grid lines, or focusing intently on one of those labeled points, SAP, YTL, etc., perhaps while contemplating the specific seal for the gate that's linked to that point on the map. That would likely be the method for engaging with this system.
Right. It provides a tangible framework, symbolic, yes, but tangible for that internal exploration, for accessing those hidden keys and interacting with whatever forces or concepts the system represents. It gives you the map and the tools for the journey all laid out visually.
It really is a comprehensive structural blueprint for working with their specific interpretation of the Necronomicon material. Quite elaborate.
Now, to really get the full picture of this document and where it fits, we need to look at that broader context. The source material included an image of what looks like an IGOS catalog page.
Yes, and that page is incredibly revealing about the organization itself and its place in the occult marketplace or world of studies back in 1990.
What does it tell us?
Well, first, it confirms IGOS presented itself as a nonprofit organization offering a really wide range of studies materials, not just focused on one thing.
And there's that illustration again, right? The one labeled the Ancient Guardian of Knowledge, showing the robed, bearded figure with a staff. It was on an earlier page, too.
Yes, it's clearly an emblem for the organization. It reinforces that image they wanted to project of safeguarding ancient wisdom, having a lineage, a tradition, and then you look at the list titled Some Topics in the Catalog. And the sheer breadth of what they offered. It's really something. It covers so many different areas of occultism.
Let's just run through some of those topics listed to give everyone a sense of the scope. They offered material on Aleph Bet powers, sounds like Hebrew mysticism, Kabbalah maybe.
Likely.
Alchemy, the classic art of transformation. Astrology, Binacraft, Bina being a sphere on the Kabbalistic tree of life, usually associated with understanding. Then black magic, listed right there explicitly. Crystal gazing, scrying, divination. Enochian magic, the system from John Dee and Edward Kelly.
A complex system.
Fortune telling, graphology, analyzing handwriting, hypnotism, left-hand path, a term often associated with, well, less conventional spirituality or magic.
Individualism, sometimes transgression.
Yeah. Then just magic broadly. Mandalas, which ties directly back to the Necronomicon document we're focused on. Meditation, also key to their Necronomicon approach. Necronomicon itself is listed.
Right there in the mix.
Nostradamus, psychometry, reading energy from objects, runes, secret societies, spirit communication, tarot, talismans, and then some more unusual ones like Invisible Man and Yoga's Nismati Hidden, whatever that last one is.
Way to list.
It's incredibly informative, isn't it? Because it tells us that this hidden keys of the Necronomicon document, it wasn't some standalone, super niche publication, even within IGOS.
Not at all.
It was just one item available, among many others, within this very broad curriculum of occult studies they were offering.
Exactly. The catalog page mentions they offered courses, books, newsletters, and memberships. And it even talks about having complete patterns for various degrees of occult colleges, misspelling included.
Occult colleges, so like a structured learning system with degrees.
It certainly suggests that. A tiered system of learning and practice, perhaps.
So this Necronomicon material, with its mandalas and keys, was integrated right alongside everything from traditional divination like tarot and astrology to really complex magical systems like alchemy and Enochian magic, to practical techniques like hypnotism and meditation, and even potentially controversial paths like black magic and the left-hand path.
It was treated as just another legitimate system, another body of knowledge within the huge field of occult sciences as IGOS understood and taught it. This context is crucial for seeing how they approached it.
Sure.
They organized it, packaged it with diagrams and instructions, and offered it up as part of this wider systematized curriculum available to members and the public in 1990. It wasn't presented as the ultimate secret, maybe, but as one stream of study you could pursue within their very broad offerings.
Okay, let's try to synthesize all of this now, pulling the threads together. Based on everything we've seen in these excerpts, how does this IGOS document actually present the Necronomicon?
Okay, well, fundamentally, it presents the Necronomicon not as, say, a dusty old historical text or just Lovecraft's creation.
But as a vibrant, practical framework, something intended for active, magical, or perhaps spiritual practice.
And it offers these hidden keys to unlock it.
Exactly. The keys are the symbolic language. The seals, the sigils, the specific names, maybe the accompanying texts. And these keys aren't random. They're organized and visually mapped onto the structure of the mandal or wheel.
And actually using this system, engaging with it, is explicitly tied to achieving specific internal states, right? Through those preparatory practices, clearing the mind, meditation, intuition, dream work laid out in the waking section and hinted at in the introduction.
Yes. It absolutely demands an active, internal, experiential approach from the person using it. You have to prepare yourself and then engage intuitively.
And the cosmology diagram, the absolute, provides the whole metaphysical stage for this, the map of reality where it all happens. Precisely. It maps out their view of a multi-layered reality. And within that reality, the gates and their complex seals function as the access points, or maybe symbolic representations of the specific energies, entities, or states of consciousness that belong to those different layers. And the idea is you access or work with those using the mandal as your guide while employing the specific meditative techniques they describe.
And finally, seeing it within the context of that IGOS catalog,
Yeah.
it shows this wasn't created in a vacuum.
Not at all. It shows it was part of a larger, structured body of knowledge offered by this specific organization in 1990. They took Necronomicon-related material, integrated it into their diverse occult curriculum, gave it a systematic structure with diagrams and instructions, and offered it up for study and practice.
So it's really a concrete example of how these esoteric groups can adopt concepts, interpret them, and then build their own practical systems around them, even from sources that might not be, ancient traditional grimoires.
Yeah, exactly. They constructed a complete framework here. It has theory, the cosmology, the structure of the mandal. It has symbolic tools, the seals, the labels on the wheel. And it has practical methods, the waking instructions, the meditation focus. It's a self-contained system based on their interpretation.
Okay, so let's connect this back to you, the listener, especially if you're someone already interested in occult ideas or systems. Why is diving into this particular document, this IGOS material, valuable?
Well, I think it provides a really tangible case study. It shows how these complex, sometimes abstract, esoteric systems aren't just theories floating around. They get structured, visualized, and actually taught within specific real-world traditions or organizations like IGOS back in 1990. It shows the mechanics of how an organization tried to make something as notoriously enigmatic as the Necronomicon workable.
And it gives us a crystal clear example of how symbolic language is used, right? All those incredibly detailed and varied sigils, the diagrams, the specific names, Auric, Shaitan, among the weird labels on the mandal. That is the key. It's the specialized language you supposedly need to learn and use to access the hidden knowledge or operate the system.
Absolutely. The symbols are the interface.
Yeah.
And it also really highlights that essential blend you often find, the theoretical structure combined with practical instruction.
Yeah.
The cosmology gives you the why and the where. The mandal gives you the how to navigate. But the waking section gives you the how to prepare yourself to even use the map effectively. You need both parts, the map and the method of reading it or using it.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, it's just a fascinating example of how cultural concepts, even ones with roots in fiction or modern mythology, can be absorbed, reinterpreted, and given real form and function within actual occult or esoteric movements.
Yeah, it really shows the dynamic, sometimes creative, sometimes maybe syncretic way these traditions evolve, how they integrate new ideas, even controversial ones, and build practical systems around them. It challenges easy categorization and reveals a kind of ingenuity in constructing these symbolic realities.
It's like a snapshot of one specific group's attempt to map the unknown, using the Necronomicon, however they interpreted it, as their central focus point for that map.
It's a very specific and detailed snapshot, yeah.
So we've journeyed through the structure of this unusual IGOS document. We've looked at the internal preparations it suggests are necessary, its unique vision of a layered cosmos, and the whole complex array of symbolic keys, the seals and the mandal it presents for navigating its version of the Necronomicon.
It really offers a detailed glimpse into the mechanics of one particular occult system from that era, showing how complex ideas were translated into tools and frameworks intended for practice.
It definitely leaves us with a lot to think about. It may be a provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over, considering how this document weaves together meditation, intricate symbolism, a layered cosmology, and this central conceptual map, or mandal. What does this specific approach suggest about the more universal ways humans try to map the unseen? Whether they label that unseen magic or consciousness or the subconscious, or something else entirely?
That's a great question. It really points towards maybe a fundamental human drive, doesn't it? To find structure, to find meaning, and maybe find points of access or control within the vast, unseen aspects of reality, or even just our own minds.
Yeah.
And it shows how symbolic language, combined with altered states of consciousness like meditation, seem to be recurring primary tools humans reach for in that exploration. It underlines the enduring power of maps, whether they're physical maps of land or symbolic maps like this mandal, and helping us navigate perceived landscapes, both the ones outside us and the ones inside.
Exactly. Definitely something to ponder as you continue your own deep dives.